Part 3 of Waptick in the Closet. There's a set of text files I built up on my computer of old projects I never got around to. GTD rule, getting things done rule, is if you don't do something or if you don't revisit a project, get rid of it, erase it, or do something with it and then get rid of it, but don't spend too much time on it. This is the third video. That'll mean 45 minutes, and I'm going to keep going until the battery goes dead. Next one. There is no minimum federal law regulation barrel length for a handgun, nor a maximum. But there is no federal requirement to serialize your home-built firearm. Ergo, you can build a very concealable weapon and nobody knows you own it. Just make it legally. So what's restricting it? It has to have a rifled barrel. But what's the minimum length? There isn't one. So you could literally just build a revolver that has a zero-length barrel. California unsafe ghost gun, handgun, and anti-zip gun law to make it illegal to build an unsafe handgun. There's actual real reasons for this, but you got to laugh at California making safety regulations. You must first apply to the California District of Justice for a serial number, pay a fee, and they will then assign a serial number that you must apply to your firearm before it's finished as a fixed magazine. Fixed magazine or device that prevents removal of magazine without disassembly of the action. To register a home-built firearm as an assault weapon, you have to do it if it's got it removed. Or you can make a featureless rifle in the first place, home-built, and they're not allowed to demand anything of you. They're assuming people are going to make AR-15s. It's a war on AR-15s. But let's get back to the unsafe gun. This is real simple. Depending on how you make it, it's almost impossible to make an unsafe revolver. Revolvers by nature are usually, because they are made the way they are, there's no empty chamber unless you don't load it. It's sort of like magazine-fed guns you can put around in the chamber, etc. But unless you're an idiot, you're going to make it to where it won't actually hurt anybody if you drop it. And it's not that complicated to make a gun that won't hurt anybody unless you literally pull the trigger and literally do everything necessary to get it to fire. You have to compel it to fire rather than having something else. But anyway, they had an old single-shot exemption for California dimensionally compliant single-shot pistols or handguns, a single-shot firearm, 10-inch overall length, and with a 6 to 16-inch barrel length. Then after it's made, it can legally be a 10-round magazine or a semi-auto pistol and any rifled barrel. California had this rule in place, and then they let you do the serial number and all that kind of stuff, and then they used the database to go fuck with people anyway. It was entrapment. Manufactured other than by firearms manufacturer or gunsmith. DIY non-transferable legitimate sporting use inert projectile firearm without manufacturer's licensing. If you are not a dishonorable military discharge, mentally ill, unfit, or felon in prison for a year or more, or expressly or specifically prohibited from receiving or possessing a firearm as punishment. Now, why would any of this come up? Well, it has to have a certain barrel length, blah, 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 for safety reasons. To keep you from putting your hand in front of the barrel so you don't blow your finger off. The only real restriction that anybody brings up about obviously concealable weapons, pistols, is that they have to have a rifled barrel for a very simple reason. It makes a barrier for entry. It makes it to where you have to actually do something. And I can kind of respect it. Even a YouTube channel and also a company, Subaru Firearms, he's notorious for not building ways of getting out of these rules, but building really good designs and being an engineer. He's an engineer. He loves using his milling machines and stuff like that instead of doing things by hand. But he gets along with people who does things by hand. But even he leaves a barrier for entry, like in the video, I love this. He's like, well, there's a barrier for entry. You have to actually do some research. And then the next frame is a complete diagram with all the stats on the metal pipe type that he's using, which is 0.81 inches inner diameter. You just type that in. He put a 0 in front of it so you actually type in the right thing to get the right product off of the internet. You just literally type it in and you find it. The barrier for entry, if you didn't get the joke he was doing on screen, is paying attention. The barrier for entry for putting rifling in a barrel is figuring out that you can just buy a barrel liner that's rifled. The end result has to be rifled. So you buy a barrel liner for $30 that's several feet long, chop off a couple inches and make a barrel that surrounds it, and then you have to figure out how to get it in there and make it stay. Here's your barrel and here's the body of the gun. Drill in this way into it, the right diameter, and shove it in there so when it's fired it doesn't push out because you didn't drill it in the wrong direction. That literally is it. You just make it snug fit and then glue it. It's not really hard to do. And what's funny is if you watch how they make revolvers or pistols, there's a video for it from a company that shows them doing the same thing. They use barrel liners because they can keep the guns very consistent and very, very well made. You just have to know how to mill everything. Or you can learn saltwater rifling. But anyway, the single shot pistol exemption existed in California for people who were making guns to do literally one thing: target practice. They were just shooting targets out in the middle of nowhere. They decided to go crazy on them, even though by definition a single shot magazine fed that's like bump stock slingshot. I don't get why. Anyway, let's go on. Actually, the reason they came up with that is people made single-shot .22 AR-15s and then upgraded them later without telling them. That was their story, and they were sticking to it. The trouble is, there were actual people who did that, and basically, I don't know who, I don't want to blame anybody. I'll blame California. Let's go on. Percussion primer caps and loose powder and balls. Any gauge, caliber, muzzle loading, rifle, pistol, cannon, mortar, shotgun, anything you want. The reason for that is you have to assemble things, fire it, and then assemble it again. A revolver is an exception to that. You can make an 8-shot revolver, and you can literally shove a primer in this end, and you can shove the bullet in first, push it in a specific distance, put in your propellant, any propellant, it doesn't matter, and then put in a primer. Or you can make it to where really small hole back here for the primer, just like in a standard cartridge, and you basically build a bunch of cartridges that are on a cylinder. But anyway, any replica thereof or an antique firearm itself designed before 1898. Designed, period, full stop. 1880 is the easy clear-off point. That can only use unavailable, obsolete fixed ammunition, normal ammunition that isn't available. There's a lot of rimfire 45s, by the way. You can convert them into, firing something else. An ignition system that's different. Any obsolete matchlock, muzzle loader, flintlock, rifle, shotgun, or pistol that can only propel a projectile safely using black powder and can't be converted to or was never designed or redesigned by any change of components for use with current fixed ammunition. And then they eventually added in, this isn't California, this is federal, a ruling on smokeless powder. And then people built just over-designed newer ones, and they had to throw out all those rules and just say, if it doesn't use any cartridges at all, or if it only uses cartridges where you have to hand make them, they don't have a problem with it. But that's really dubious because some people brought back new ones. I want to bring back the Velodog 22 centerfire. I consider it completely legit. That and the fact that it's a 22 Magnum centerfire. You can just stick it into a standard 22 Magnum pistol and just move the firing pin. It's not that complicated. Let's see. Next. A handgun, revolver, or pistol, or semi-automatic with any barrel length, short-range firearm, designed, made, or intended to be fired one-handed, must be rifled to avoid being restricted as a sawed-off pistol or shotgun. A sawed-off shotgun, excuse me. Now that ruling came through because people made what I would make, a flare gun, didn't get the exemption or the note that says it's a flare gun, it's cool. Because, stupidly, the most common flare cartridge in the United States is a 12-gauge shotgun shell repurposed, which meant you would be literally making a real legit short barrel shotgun. That and the fact there are shotguns that are 22 caliber. So they said you just put a rifled barrel in it. 4-inch minimum handgun barrel length if hunting. These are actual restrictions and suggestions. And on flare guns, if you're not aware of it, the minimum barrel length is whatever you find in standard flare guns, or 8 to 12 inches if it's over 1-inch bore. 1-inch or higher bore, you want it 1 foot long or 8 inches long, depending on the cartridge. I'm recommending 8 inches. And that's just all there is to it. When it comes to flare guns, 4 inches or 3 inches if they're 12 gauge based. Even though there are shotgun shells that are 3 inches, yeah, you get the idea. It's the chamber length for that. Hey, if you're going to do a 4 gauge pistol shooting what looks like a giant shotgun shell and it only fires flares because you would never want to fire real ammo out of it, there aren't any. Do what you want. Anyway. And the handgun barrel length of hunting, if it's less than 26 inches, 4 inches long. Next, private citizen must pay a standard $200 NFA tax to convert an existing shoulder-stocked shotgun or pistol, shotgun or rifle to any other weapon that doesn't meet definitions. And if you have a pistol grip only shotgun and you shorten the barrel so that things less than 26 inches overall, you have to get a permit. It's only $5 for one type and $200 for the other. An NFA licensed originally manufactured non-rifled weapon under 26 inch length without a shoulder stock is not legally a shotgun, but it does require $5 any other weapon tax. And that's no shoulder stock, pistol grip only, and non-rifled. So you can build your Mooseberg moose knuckle hand wave at 26 inches, and you can build it originally shorter than that, and it's a $5 AOW tax. But you're registering your weapon at that point. However, you can build something over 26 inches long, overall length, and get away with having a short barrel on it if you don't configure it as anything but pistol grip. Because it falls into that weird thing of being a hybrid pistol whatever, and they don't want you to have rifling on it, because then it gets confusing because it'd be a short-barreled rifle. Yeah, fun thing. Dancing around all these rules to do a test bench for testing a barrel. You get the AATF to say, yes, here's your permit, it's $0. We acknowledge that you're testing ammunition and you need to do barrel length checks because you're firing shotgun shells. Or you're doing barrel length tests and you want to use short barrels and you just want to mount it to a bench and it makes it too large to be a pistol, so okay, go ahead and do it. You just get them to give you permission because you say, I'm testing speed on barrel and length versus cartridge, and yeah, they'll do that. They don't have a problem with that. You do have to list yourself with them. You'd have to say it's at only one location. It's all going to be bolted down. Or you buy a test bench for it, literally, that you can make one, say here it is, and they're like, yeah, you can put whatever you want to in it. You can even make it to where it fires automatically because you're testing ammunition. It can't be pointed any other direction. Handgun with a barrel not shorter than 16 inches can legally be redefined as a rifle rather than a handgun by adding a shoulder stock, and or one that's a takedown can be converted back and forth because of a ruling involving Thompson center arms. And you're playing with fire if you do these things. Here we go. It has to be below 50 caliber at that point. And then you can go from 50 caliber up because now it's a shoulderable weapon. Pistols intended to be gripped with one hand, one shot per trigger activation. Minimum barrel length depends on the caliber and allows for enough barrel to be rifled of practical value, meaning longer than the cartridge. And then there was a ratio based on the diameter of the bullet and the number of caliber diameter changes. Interesting. And I couldn't get the equation out of the ATF or the FBI. We'll do that later. Next vid. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.